I have to admit, when I first heard about this movie, I was very unenthused. I did not like X-Men The Last Stand, as you know by now, and I had no problem with the Wolverine prequel, but it bothers me when they start pounding the reset button so soon because of a bad film in the franchise. But I digress. This one goes back to the origins of the X-Men, formed by Professor X and Magneto when they were much younger men in the 60s. It also expands on the intro to the first film, showing that after a very young Magneto showed his powers as a child, and his parents were dragged away, the Nazis tried to get him to use his powers for their means, which was spearheaded by a German scientist who would eventually take the name Sebastian Shaw. Shaw, played by Kevin Bacon, is the main villain of the movie, and as Xavier and Magneto put together their first team of X-Men, including Beast, Havok, Mystique, Tempest, Darwin, and Banshee, Shaw gathers together his own team, the Hellfire Club, with the White Queen, Azazel, Riptide, and one of the X-Men defects and joins him. The battle between the two teams is heavily rooted in the politics of the 60s, putting the X-Men in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis, orchestrated by Shaw to get the United States and the Soviet Union to go to war with each other, and the X-Men are there to stop him. Though Magneto still harbors his own agenda, he wants to get revenge on Shaw for killing his family. The entire thing is pretty tense and gives us a fresh take on the X-Men. Gone are the dark leather outfits and super stylized take on the characters. The film goes back to the 60s aesthetic of yellow costumes. It feels more like a comic book, despite the fact that it also takes itself rather seriously. The actors seem unaware that they're in a superhero movie, which is a good thing. They all take it very seriously. I was most impressed with Kevin Bacon's great villainous turn as Shaw and Michael Fassbender as Magneto. Now, it is true that this film wreaked havoc with the X-Men continuity. For example, if this was in the 60s, how would the young-looking Xavier turn into Patrick Stewart in less than 10 years for his cameo in X-Men Origins Wolverine? Also, Beast is working on a cure for mutation, which only makes his own mutation stronger, but it really doesn't jibe with his role in X-Men The Last Class. Of course, it also shows that Xavier and Magneto part ways in ideologies as young men, but the flashback scenes of them in The Last Stand discovering Jean Grey show them as older men. How is the White Queen a teenager in X-Men Origins Wolverine 10 years after she's an adult in this movie? It creates a mess. But this was Fox's way of eventually restarting the series. Yes, it is in continuity with the first 3 X-Men movies, and it takes place slightly before X-Men Origins Wolverine, but it essentially is the beginning of a new series and should be taken as such, and essentially this series has eventually righted itself via time travel. That being said, I feel that in a review, I should talk about a film on its own merits, not how it affects other movies. I know I went into that, but those were just nitpicks, and it's not going to affect my score. X-Men First Class is great, perhaps the best X-Men movie ever released. It's a great period piece, a great superhero movie, and has some great acting. Overall, I can't really say anything negative about it without going into nerdy nitpicking. I already did that, but like I said, none of that matters. It's not how I roll, so I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10.